Hi everybody, it's Mark here, and I thought I'd just come on and talk a little bit about some of the readings and books I've gotten into over my Thoth Tarot deck studies. If you've been following my channel, you know that I've been doing a deep study of that deck since last summer, so we're about a year into it, and I find myself with 15 books on hand concerning the Thoths specifically. Who knew there was even 15 books about it, and I believe there are even more out there. 2 of them I have not yet read, so I won't have much to say on them, and I'll end up the video with my 2 favorite of these books. So the first book that I read on Thoth after I had the deck and wasn't even using it, so this was years before I even started this deep study, was this one, Tarot Handbook by Angelise Arian. It's a massive book, as you can see, big old pages and stuff, and it's a good book. I really enjoyed it, but it was the wrong book to start with because she doesn't 100% stick to the intended Thoth meanings and symbolism, but she does jump off into interesting Jungian psychological perspectives on the cards. So it can still work, the cards still work with her own analysis, but it's not, let's say, Golden Dawn based as the deck was built to be. But what she did come up with, probably the most important thing she came up with in her tarot work, is she came up with the concept of the tarot birth card. So when you add up your day, month, and year of birth and reduce all the numbers to the first number that hits 22 or less, you have your tarot birth card. And she came up with the concept of what tarot year are you in this year. So you would just take your month and day of birth and add that to the current year and come up with a card that is thematic for your year. So that was a really great contribution. So I am looking forward to rereading this book. I only read it the once, and again, I wasn't working with the deck yet. I just assumed these were the meanings of the deck because it was the only book I had read at that point. And now I want to reread it and see what other insights are possible in the deck that kind of move away from the standard symbolism and meanings. So this whole deep dive started because I got my hands on this book, and this is the one by Aleister Crowley. So this is the basic Bible of the whole deck. The deck exists because this book exists, and yeah, it's hard going and very poetic and confusing and a lot of different things. This is another book that I'm looking forward to rereading because now that I've done studies of the Kabbalah and how the astrological decans fit into the deck and various other things that are built into the Thoth deck, I think I'll understand it better the second go round. I sure won't understand all of it, but I didn't even know what Thelema was, and I've done some reading on that, and that's the Crowley sort of religion that the deck is partially based on. So I think that the next time I read it, it's going to be a better read. So of course I immediately read this book afterwards because everyone said, this is the book that explains what's in this book, but in a much more accessible manner, and certainly a more humorous manner. He's a good writer, he's humorous. It is all a bit dry, and there's a lot of information to take in, so there's a bit of overwhelm with this one as well as this one. Neither of them are good books. In fact, none of them so far, including this one, are really good books for what I could call divination purposes, where you just want to you did a reading and you want to see what it means, so you look up the card meanings and you get a good idea of what the card is telling you and that type of thing. These are more they go into that, but this is more the philosophy behind the deck, which is important to know, no doubt. So some of the books I didn't enjoy so much, this would probably be the lowest on my list. It's just written in a very, I don't know, horoscope column kind of vibe, energy. Doesn't really address what's on the cards, and I'm really big about tell me why that's on the card and what it's supposed to mean and that kind of thing. It just goes right into the author's meaning of the card, and I think they kind of go off path even more than that first book I showed you, and in not as deep a way, not as a Jungian psychological viewpoint, but just kind of, like I said, horoscopy column kind of vibe. And they give reversals of the card, which I never enjoy because I don't read reversals. So that's a kind of, I didn't know what, I wouldn't have bought it if I had known what I was going to get. This one is pretty much the same, but with better insights, I would say. Very much from an old hippie perspective. The author is an old hippie, and there's nothing wrong with old hippies. But again, not really in the meat of what I think the Crowley cards are meant to mean. But still, it was worth a read, and sometimes you just want to read something a little bit lighter, but not as light as this. So there's that one. And this one is kind of in the same category as those two. I'm glad I read them, but not much there. Although the one thing, this one's a little better because it does address sort of the things that are actually on the card and that kind of vibe. But the thing I particularly like in this is there's some kind of a psychological quadrant called the Bauta, B-A-U-T-A quadrant by Scott Grossberg. I've never heard of it before, but the author has adapted it to the tarot cards. And it's a 4-part thing. There's the mask, which is what makes me who I am, how I view myself, this sort of thing. The beast, which is how others view me, what I excuse in myself. The shadow, the thing I have no wish to be. And the light, what others think I need, what I look at with wonder and that type of thing. And so the author, goes through the card and plugs it in to this system that I just described. And so for the strength or lust card, the mask is passionate, the beast is impulsive, the shadow is dull and cautious, and the light is focus. So just something to sort of play with and think about, and I always enjoy that. So overall, an average book on Thoth. This one is recommended by a lot of people, and I didn't love it as much as I thought I was going to love it. It does go into some of the things that are on the card, some of the descriptors and some of the meanings, but I didn't find it all that deep, really. It was okay. I think we can read in other places what some of the symbolism they concentrate on, and there's really not enough concentration on the symbolism in each card, and there's so much in a Thoth deck. So I prefer this one, which does go into a lot of the symbolism absolutely on the card. Now, they may not land on what Crowley exactly meant, but at least they're talking about the thing, And one of the authors, one of the co-authors, this Bonsoff, he actually has also written my favorite book on the deck, which I will get to. So there's tons of information on each card, there's all these categories that they go into. Besides the description of a lot of the symbolism, they go into each symbol in depth. They look at interpretation as a background, as a general interpretation, as consciousness, as your profession, as relationships. And then at the end, there's sort of a categorizing by all kinds of different subjects. What it is as an archetype, what it is as a number, what it is in the Tree of Life, what's its I Ching equivalent, its rune, its planet, its deities, its mythology, cult sites on the planet that resonate to this card, a Sabbath day connected to this card, a ritual, an artist, picture, writings, music, fragrance, gems, astrology, alchemy, and quotation. I'll just give you a look. This has to do with the Tower card. So yeah, lots going on there, lots of thought on the cards. Again, jumping off of what Crowley probably meant, but some really good stuff to get your teeth into. Now, I bought all 3 of these books by Marcus Katz, Secrets of the Thoth Tarot. This is on the majors, this is on the minors, and this is on the court cards. And it wasn't great. I just had hoped for a lot more. He ends up quoting a lot of Crowley's own book, the Book of Thoth I showed you. And not a lot of original stuff here, but here and there he has somehow gotten his hands on personal writings of Crowley, so that makes it worthwhile. And it's so funny because I read this book, and then I read this book, and then I read the 3rd book. Each are getting progressively thinner. This is the thickest one, the first one, but all cost the same, which not thrilled about that. I would have thought this one would have been less money. In any case, the whole thing was worthwhile because at the very end is where I found the writings of Crowley's personal tarot spread that he used and some of his actual personal tarot readings for himself and others. And that was worth the price of all 3 books. And I have another video on here called My Favorite Tarot Spread. I call it the Magic Spread, I think. And it's great, and I'm loving the spread. So I've really found something. With most books, you do find something, just that one gem that makes the purchase worthwhile. Now, as to the 2 I haven't read yet, this is Tarot and the Magus, and this book is all about the Golden Dawn's opening of the key spread and how you go about using it and reading with it. So again, I can't vouch for it yet because it's not been read. And the book that I had for quite a while, I purchased it because I didn't want it to go out of print, but I'm savoring it because I think it's going to be a really, really good book. This is Phyllis Seckler. It's her writings but pulled together by these editors, and she was a Golden Dawn member and knew Aleister Crowley and is writing about all the cards and all the astrology and stuff that goes behind it and all the Golden Dawn stuff that the cards are built on. So I know this is going to be really meaty and good, and I kind of want to finish on a positive note, you know, and still get more information as I go along, as opposed to just getting books that are repeating what I've already read. So now down to my 2 favorite Thoth books. My second favorite is this one by Gerd Ziegler, Mirror of the Soul. And it's very concise and to the point, which I enjoy. There's some description of what's going on in the card, again, to his interpretation. But I would say if you were to pull a card card of the day or in part of a spread, this would be one of the books I would go to just to get a nice, concise meaning of what the card might be telling you. And particularly with this book from a more spiritual perspective, and each card gets an indication, a question, a suggestion, and an affirmation along here. So that's useful if you just want, especially when you're reading for yourself, and we don't tend to go at great lengths when we're reading for ourselves. It's just good to get that really to the point message. But my all-time favorite book for reading with the Thoth Tarot, not necessarily getting all the information you need about the deck, although there's a lot in here. I really love this one. This is great for divination, for doing card readings, and so there he is again, now partnered with somebody else, and I think they've just done a magnificent job on this book. Honestly, I have a lot of tarot books, and whether I'm reading with an RWS deck or Marseille or Thoth, I almost never check a book. I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm going to get what I get. I look at the cards. I know how to read tarot. All the information is in there somewhere, and I just pull on that. And even when I get a little bit stuck, I don't really think to pull a book. But with the Thoth Tarot, I just enjoy this book so much that when I'm reading for myself, I almost always pull this book, especially to read about the advice position. So what is great about what they've done in this, they've, on one side, so they'll have a card like the Chariot here. I'm a Cancer, so that's my card. Yeah, you get a bit of symbolism, not everything, but you know, enough, and some description over here. And they also go into the astrology of the card. It's the same when you get to the pips, you know. So this is Three of Cups is Mercury in Cancer, and they talk about what that would mean, having Mercury joined with Cancer. So that's really helpful, just to sort of get that little bit extra. But this is the page that's really, really great. And it's so versatile. So they'll give you a general meaning, a meaning in terms of work and profession, a meaning in terms of general consciousness, something for partnerships, what the card is encouraging you to do, what is warding you against, and even very handy as a card of the day, and even handier if you do that tarot card of the year that I said Angeles Arian invented. They give you a whole card of the year thing for the majors. So that is really, really great. So much information just for one card, and just really succinctly put. And you get all of the same in the minors, except for you don't get the card of the year because the minors don't come into that. So that's my recommendation. Obviously, you have to read Lon Milo DuQuette's book and even the Book of Thoth itself to get the real background and the philosophy and all that behind the deck. But if you just want to read with the cards and you don't really care about all that, but you still want, a few pointers as to why something is on the card, and then all this juicy stuff for interpretation, I would go with this book if you could only get one book. Okay, I hope that was informative for you, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.